we're delighted to welcome to the stage Lou Ferrigno.
How are you, everybody?
I want to ask you, Lou, something. You played Luca Brasi, Lenny Montana, recently in The Offer, which is really interesting because, of course, Luca Brasi is a famous, iconic character from The Godfather, less well known to some people. He was played by one of Columbo's mobsters. Can you talk a little bit about getting that role and maybe sort of any research you did, and Al Ruddy, of course, the great Al Ruddy?
Well, it was funny, back in 1970, I think 69, I remember a bunch of friends of mine, they were having a conversation talking about The Godfather. I said, The Godfather. I'll never forget the conversation. They were talking about Brando and Lucy Brasi. So it was funny, fast forward many years later, so they approached me, they said, will you be interested in playing Lucy Brasi? I said, of course. It was interesting that he was a hitman. I think he murdered his own mother. The guy was ruthless, but he was very indebted to Columbo. So very honored to play the part because most people don't realize how The Godfather was made. All the threat, the studio, the fraud, all the stuff. It's amazing because you see the series, you understand that it wasn't a piece of cake, The Godfather. I think it made basically a difficult film because they had to deal with the negativity, especially with the mafia, like Sinatra. But they finally got the movie made, one of the greatest films of all time. Al Francis Ford Coppola got hired. So I was excited to play Brasi because I just watched him when I was a kid. Never forget, trying to memorize his line. I said, man, this is a big guy, a menacing guy. I wouldn't want to mess with him. So here I am, Lucy Brasi.
Was that something that came to you for an offer, or ironically, was it an offer where they cast you, or was it something you had to audition for?
Well, I auditioned for it because they contacted me because today when you do an audition, you can do it on the computer. So I put a black suit, black tie, and then just stand in front of the computer and just read the line for auditions for it. My manager talked me into it. I said, Lucy Brasi, because, Paramount Studios, but then I heard about the script. I said, I have to win this audition. It was funny because in my home, I live 3.5 hours away from LA. That's the beauty about it. They hire me on the spot because that camera's very close to me.
And that's, well, presumably you haven't murdered anybody, but it was very close to me. Otherwise.
Thank you.
Not yet. You wouldn't like it when he was here. So you have a very well documented early career, obviously, unlike a lot of people, because of course, Pumping Iron shows you, can you talk a little bit about, some people have yearbooks, some people, have, slideshows. You have a whole movie about what that time in your life was like. When you look back at it now, what is your feeling? How do you feel about that, and just the fact that you've sort of shared that with the whole world?
You talk about the docudrama Pumping Iron. Okay, what happened though, I was about maybe 21, 22. They came out with a book called Pumping Iron, with the bestseller. You got to remember back then when people saw bodybuilding, people considered like freak, because the general public didn't know what bodybuilding was, especially if you take me, Schwarzenegger, the way we look, it could be very intimidating. So I remember Charles Gaines and George Butler came to me and they said, we want to make this movie called Pumping Iron from the book. And we want to show the relationship, like me being the quiet guy, the kid next door, and Arnold, the arch rival. So it was a beautiful chemistry because back then, everybody had a different personality. But the interesting thing is, at the time of competition, first prize was $1,000. That was my meal intake for like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But today, first prize is almost close to $1 million. But I remember the time I was competing with Arnold, we were just sitting there looking at each other. And here's a man from Austria, I'm from New York, I was dealing with the speech issue, the hearing issue, and we were hoping to go somewhere, get some recognition. So when the movie came out, it basically opened the doors to a lot of people. It educated the public what bodybuilding really is. It's a very difficult sport. You got to be in shape, the heavy training. So even still today when you watch, even when I watch it, you get motivated, you want to go to the gym because you're talking about 50 years ago.
Were you surprised how much that movie caught on and how popular it was at the time, and obviously led to a career in entertainment. I mean, at the time, you were pursuing a career in bodybuilding, but you didn't know this would lead to entertainment. Was that did that transition catch you by surprise?
Did you know when Pumping Iron, in the post-production stage, they went bankrupt?
Oh.
If you see the making of the film, one night at the Whitney Museum in New York City, they had all the bodybuilders to get hold to raise money to finance because they went bankrupt, but they finished the film. But it was interesting that at the time I did it, I just wanted to have a career as a bodybuilder because I went to the universe twice. But the beauty about Pumping Iron that when I moved to California to train for the 1977 Mr. Olympia competition, I received a phone call to audition for the Hulk. They wanted to replace an actor named Richard Kiel. Richard Kiel played the original Hulk, he was 7'2", he didn't fit the part. So from Pumping Iron, they realized that let's get a Lou Ferrigno because he fits the Hulk. But one thing led to another.
Richard Kiel was very tall and lanky, but he wasn't a big guy. So what was it like when you met Ken Johnson? And what did he tell you? Because obviously back then, in '77, the perception people had of comic books was like, well, they'd see Batman, the TV show, they thought it was all pulpy and campy. And Ken Johnson wanted the show to be about something, but he wants you to be a big green monster week after week. What was that, your reaction? Did you jump at the opportunity? Did you have concerns?
Well, when I heard about the audition, they called me. So I went down for the audition, they said, we're going to paint you green. I said to myself, they're not painting me green. I want to get painted green, I want to go for the audition. So they talked me into it. I'll never forget when I saw Ken Johnson and Bill Bixby together. They were under a lot of stress because they were talking about shelving the pilot because they had to reshoot the entire pilot again. So I remember that time in the audition, I showed the different moves, the animalistic behavior of the Hulk. So I went home. The phone rang, Ken said, you better come back to the studio, come over the hill. I went back down, he takes me to a motorhome. He said, could you show emotions? Could you show me? Can you cry? That stuff. I never acted in my life. So I'm sitting at the other side of the bed trying to pretend I'm the Hulk. And then finally he took me upstairs to meet the executive. Then they gave me the green light to film. So the next day I got into the makeup. I was filming like 14 to 16 hours a day to finish the pilot. The first scene I did was turning over the car. Remember the very beginning scene? Okay, that was 12 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I know anything about acting, about makeup, about stage light, about script, anything. I just throw in there. It was horrific, but it was great because when they finished the first time in the makeup, I looked in the mirror and said to myself, what am I doing? My competition is 5 weeks away, and I'm looking at this monster in the mirror. I said, at the time, Spider-Man and Captain America failed as a TV series. So I said, there's a chance I have to take. So I gave up training for the Mr. Olympia to focus more on that pilot. It was a big, huge gamble. But now if you look at 50 years later, 47 years later, we have the Marvel Universe. But thanks to the Hulk, the original pilot.
What was the moment that you realized that you were a part of something special? I mean, or did that even occur to you? Was it just a gig?
Well, I realized when I was filming, they told me all the villains, like Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman, they were loved by people. So that gave me confidence, realized that what made the Hulk interesting was the Dr. Jekyll was the high fashion. Like Bill Bixby, the alter ego. That I realized that was a wonderful chemistry that could caught on, especially when it came out, every single country in the world embraced the character.
Can I jump back to Pumping Iron just this once? Because I think that the dynamic between you and Arnold specifically is very interesting to watch. Because if you haven't seen it, find it, watch it. It's brilliant because you can see Arnold putting up a big front, you know. He's posturing a lot and he's trying to psych everyone else out. And he particularly picks on you a lot because he, you know, calls you Big Louie, and he tries to put you down a bit. But you realize that's because he's nervous about you and he's threatened by you. And it's a very interesting dynamic that is so much fun to watch.
Well, that would help to get the movie to receive a lot of attention because if you had that conflict,
Yeah.
it would be about barbell, dumbbell, working out, squatting. I mean, and if you're going to watch that kind of film, say, not for me, but the storyline,
The human,
It was the love among the camaraderie among the characters.
yeah,
That, that even to today, like Arnold and I are a good friend, but back then, he would do anything he can to win.
Yeah.
He was trying to play in the mental picture on me. I wasn't in my best shape for the competition because I was training for the superstars, but because of the filming, I figured that, it'd be a great advantage for myself. But the whole time, that's why he's a Terminator. That's who he is.
yeah.
And he's so determined to win. When you want to win a competition, you have to do what you have to do, especially, it's not like you're playing basketball or tennis. It's a solo sport.
Right.
So it's a different scenario.
To create the environment for
Yeah.
winning for yourself.
Exactly.
And you were uniquely positioned to deal with sort of, I don't know if abuse is the right word, because you had dealt growing up in Brooklyn with a lot of issues with bullying because of your hearing issues at the time. Did you feel that gave you a strength, not just a physical strength, but an emotional strength, which really helped you in the competitions?
Well, close to birth, I lost like 85% of my hearing. That affected my speech. I try to convince people that I didn't have a hearing problem, but a speech problem because people put me down. They used to call me deaf Louie, deaf mute. So I realized I got to the point that I had a very severe love-hate relationship with my father because when I was born, I was not the perfect son. It was rejection. So I didn't want to carry his pain anymore. So basically I said to myself, I have to fight twice as hard than the average person to succeed. So something got into me. That's why I used to read the whole comic book, my Superman comic, to escape my imagination, the pain I was going through, the rejection. I was always told, you can't, if you don't have a hearing, you can never be a police officer, you can't do this, you're not bright enough. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when I used to read the comics, I got very obsessed with power. You see, when kids, they talk about power. That led me to bodybuilding fitness. But thank God he gave me the wonderful genetics to be a real bodybuilding champion. But that passion in me gave me that drive. I knew it was an antidote for my pain. I said to myself, it's such a good feeling. Even though all the naysayers tend to be, why are you working out? You're never going to make money as a bodybuilder. You're never going to be in the magazine. Or you talk about barbell, dumbbells, looking at men, naked men with posing trunk, oiled up, looking in the mirror. I didn't care because, and then especially I'll go around eating like a bodybuilder, like eating different kinds of food, especially growing up in a tiny neighborhood. I mean, hard-boiled eggs, salad, just with a little olive oil and vinegar. Everybody else eating pasta. So, but that evolution just went on, and then what I now, it's all about passion. That's why every one of you, if you have a passion, embrace it, because that's what makes you powerful. It doesn't matter if you're a businessman, you want to sell shoes, electronic equipment, something that you're passionate about. That's the most powerful thing to have. And especially, I've learned to compete with myself. When you compete with others, you want to maximize, be the best you can within your own capacity with yourself. That's what makes life rich.
So let's talk about the being in a solo sport aspect of it. Because when you're in a solo sport, obviously there are people who train alongside you. You don't train as a team, but it's really about you and your willpower, and every day getting up and doing something new and different to advance your personal goal in your sport. But there have to be days when your body says, I really don't want to. And you have to find a way to convince your body to summon that will to do the thing that you need to do. Like, how did you contend with those days? How did you get past those moments? Or did you not have those moments when your body said, maybe not today?
Well, I would just, for example, lay back and say to myself, when I go on stage to compete, if I'm not 100% of my best, it's my fault. So I would get up and say to myself, I'm tired. I go do what I have to do to train, no matter what, because that's what it takes to be a world champion. Like you take Michael Jordan. Every time he played practice game, he played just as hard when he played in a competitive game. The same thing. And the beauty about a solo sport, you gotta remember one thing, you take Tiger Woods. That man's hitting a golf ball in front of the whole world. It's all about isolating yourself. I mean, you got eyes on him, everyone, billions of people. It's only him hitting the golf ball because he has to isolate himself and block everything out. That's why solo sport, that's what it takes. I mean, especially not a team sport, but mostly solo sport. Like bodybuilding, you're on stage, you gotta be tan, you gotta be the best condition of your life day of the competition. You gotta have a posing routine, you gotta have the right music. I mean, any flaws you have, you lose points. That's why many times I would say to myself, if I I feel a little lazy, I would say to myself, it's only me. You have to take action. Nobody else can pat you on the back and say, listen, you can get a support group, but only you can make that move. Only you can make that decision to be a world champion. You have to love pain to be a world champion. I don't mean physical pain, I mean the pain. I mean, nothing comes easy in life. Like, if you want to be a great actor, good actor, you have to study and work your ass off. That's what it takes. That's what my story.
Can you tell us, during the production of The Hulk, and the day that Mr. Rogers came to visit, because that is one of the most memorable episodes that he did, lifting the veil off the magic of the Hulk and taking some of the fear away from kids. How was that for you?
Well, I used to watch the show when I was young.
Sure.
When he came to the set, Bill Bixby said to me, Richard Rogers coming. I said, are you kidding me? When he came down, of course he wears his sweaters, and he talks in a very soft tone. He was a wonderful mentor. When he came to the motorhome, just me and him in the motorhome, I mean, I was like ecstatic. I was like, this is fantastic. Because I remember watching him on TV by myself, you know, with all these different handicaps, seeing myself, in which I could be someone, and suddenly you fast forward 10 years later, he's with me in my motorhome. It's a beautiful moment, especially that he captured the personality, the creature side of the Hulk, not the menacing side.
Yeah. And it's strange how he is exactly the same in person as he was on television.
Yes.
There was no difference. And it's just seeing that with you and he in the motorhome is so magical, and it brings a tear to my eye even now.
Thank you.
You mentioned earlier that they had a lot riding on the Hulk, that the show could have easily the pilot could have been canceled or never aired because unless they found the right guy to play the Hulk, and Bill Bixby and Kenneth Johnson, there was so much riding on you, and you pull it off, and it's remarkable because, of course, when we think of the Hulk, people think of you, and I wonder if you can talk a little about the experience of working on that show over the course of several years, and of course your friendship with Bill Bixby, who was such a wonderful man who died way too young, and even though you didn't share many scenes together for obvious reasons, you worked together, and he was a really terrific mentor as well as as an actor.
You know, it's funny, when I filmed the Hulk, it's not just the makeup. I had the contact lens, I had people vision. I had to do 100% on my own stunts, going through windows, walls, and everything, being retouched. It was probably one of the most difficult things I've done. But Bill gave me all the confidence because when I came on the set, Bill did different TV series like The Courtship of Godfather, My Favorite Magician. So he's one of my favorite actors. I remember I was on the set, I watched him, I studied him. Because he said to me one time, I'll never forget the day you came on the set. The first day, you were looking at all the walls of the studio, the big camera truck driving by, like a little kid in another world. And he took me under his wing. Because Bill was a wonderful producer, actor, director. So he's almost like a second father to me. Because when you film a TV series, you spend more time on the series than your spouse, your wife. And it's like sometimes 60 hours a week. So I learned so much from him because he told me what it's like to be a professional. Be on time, be on the set, know your line. Because so many actors today, they get lazy. And then they'll appreciate, respect their craft like the way Bill and I did.
And back then, of course, shooting with film, there's not usually multiple cameras back then. It's one camera shooting on film, which you said about not having a stunt double. How do you find a stunt double for Lou Ferrigno? It's impossible. So the amount of time and work that you put into that and creating a character. I mean, that's why I think when they did the later Hulks and you have a cameo in all those films, I mean, it's because there's so much reference for what you created that, you didn't need CGI, you just needed Lou Ferrigno.
You know, it's funny, when I read the comic when I was young, always in the left-hand corner said, written by Stan Lee. Now, I read Hulk comics before I discovered Muscle Magazine, Bodybuilding. So I had tons and tons of magazines. I remember one day they said to me, Stan Lee's on the set. I said, Stan Lee? I was a ghostwriter. I remember when I first met him, I was so taken back. I said to him, well, if you, I wouldn't be here. But he had a kind of a funny voice. He go, why don't you work out sometime? What's wrong with you? And then eventually he ended up having a couple cameos in my series. Like, for example, one of my favorite shows is the trial of the Hulk, where Bill, the jury. And the lawyers, you know, don't get me started with lawyers. The lawyers staying pounding on him, and suddenly you see him become the Hulk, and he grabs the lawyer. Like, it's great because all our demons, our anger is brought out with the series. Doctors, lawyers, you name it, it's fun.
Excelsior!
Exactly.
And of course, you leverage the success of the Hulk playing other, sort of iconic characters. Look, Hercules was a movie you did, I think it was in '83, for the infamous Golden Globus. You shot, I think, in Europe. Can you tell us anything about the crazy Golden Globus and, what that experience was like for you?
It was a lot of fun for me because immediately after the Hulk was canceled, they offered me Hercules. I've always wanted to play Hercules because I followed the original Hercules TV. We had a chance to film in Rome, Italy, the catacomb, but I was so excited because the character was not green. And they could see my definition better on the screen because on the Hulk with the paint, it would hide my definition. So I enjoyed that film, and I've done the Magnificent Gladiator, Sinbad. It was fun. It gave me a chance to get into the feature film instead of just the TV series to reach our franchise.
And then also, the Hulk was still a part of your life in addition to the other TV movies they did. You were often asked early on with the Marvel to do the efforts, the distinctive growls, animalistic sounds that the Hulk made, and then you returned for these two cameos as well in the Hulk movies. Can you talk a little bit about sort of being the then elder statesman of Hulkdom?
Well, I mentioned the voice and everything, then the animated cartoon, and then eventually I did the voice for the movie itself, and then also the Walk with Stan Lee. Then I ended up doing Adventure Time, because I've always wanted to do the voice of the Hulk from the series. But I think, being young, not deep enough, but now I know how the Hulk thinks and feel. But I don't know if you know, if you ever do a voiceover, it's very difficult, because you're by yourself. It's not like doing this theme, only you.
It's a solo sport.
There you go, exactly, I like that word.
And you may have sworn to never go green again, but yet somehow you got talked into doing a Green Orion slave master in one of the Star Trek fan films. Can you tell us how that happened and how you got convinced to hit the green paint again?
Well, what's interesting, I was a huge fan of the original Star Trek series. Of course, William Shatner, Captain Kirk, one of my favorite characters. That show we ran for like maybe 2 years. But the Orion race, they were green.
Right.
So there was a friend of mine I worked with, his name was Vic Madonna. He had an online TV series, Star Trek, Continue. He came to me, he said, there's a wonderful character you can play called Salomon. I said, really? He said, that instead we have to get you painted green. I said, here we go again. I fly to Florida. He had a set on the Florida. I remember I went through the whole makeup process. I had 5 little fans blowing on me because of humidity. I went trying not to sweat because I had a bald cap. But what I love about the character, this slave trader, he's a vicious animal, ferocious. So I had a chance to play that character to show the evil side. It was fun because even now, that's why Star Trek all these years became such a huge phenomenon. But I never forget the original series, the Orion race. I used to watch William Shatner. And it's great that William Shatner is still here with us in '94. And he's signing autographs. I mean, think about it. Back then, when he did Star Trek, he was living out of the car. Yeah, I mean, that,
70s, yeah.
incredible, coming a long way. But his show, this was at the time before Star Wars. At the time, the first science fiction space series.
And so, you've played all these different characters, but it seems in the last couple of years, one of the most popular characters you've played is yourself. You keep recurring as Lou Ferrigno in various capacities. Can you tell us a little bit about getting pigeonholed as Lou Ferrigno in the movies and TV?
Well, I did a movie, Run in Dangerfield and Dom DeLuise. The one night the producers from King and Queen were watching the show, they said, why not bring Lou at the show as a guest? And they gave me the script, play yourself. I said, fine. But in real life, people say they make Hulk jokes, they call me the Hulk. I could do 5 Gone with the Wind movies now, I'll still be known as the Hulk. So they incorporated that into the series. And it's wonderful because people see it like everyday life. I could do the same thing every day. It's nice. But the thing about King and Queen in front of a live audience, when you do comedy, it's very difficult because You can't really be funny, you have to adapt to the character, and the audience knows that you only have 1 or 2 takes. But the actors I've worked with, they were so delicious, like Kevin James, Lee Remini, Jerry Stiller. It was a wonderful experience because I was on the show with a name, but then it became a recurring role. But then after that became the movie I Love You Man. It's the same thing. They're trying to steal my house. I hate the real estate guy. You can see in the movie I put him in chokehold. but we go through that. Everyday life, that's why it's about imperfection.
And one of the things you did for a long time too was as a personal trainer to many celebrities, including Michael Jackson. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Maybe some of the more interesting experiences you've had as a trainer?
Well, Michael can't train in the gym, normal gym. And Michael can't drive a car. Can you imagine having an accident with Michael Jackson?
I'm really sorry.
I know. Anyway, the doctor called me, Dr. Steve Hoffman, super nice guy, plastic surgeon. He said Michael needs training, get over his, stretching, stagnant, that stuff. So he brings Michael to my house. I remember Michael, I admired his passion for music. He admired my passion for physical fitness. We became good friends because Michael felt safe with me. But he would come to me 10 o'clock at night. One night he came to me, he had gloves on, he had a mask and a hat. 10 o'clock at night, he comes to my gym and back in my house. He said, I said, why are you wearing a mask? He said, I want people to stare at me. I said, Michael, my dog don't even know you're here. It's 10 o'clock at night. There's not a person on the street. But it was great because we were very, very close. I trained on and off for years. But it's amazing. I trained Mickey Rourke, Chuck Norris. I trained so many different celebrities. It's nice because you get to see the other side of the person. What they really like. It's interesting, especially when they come to me. They know they have to produce results because I don't train people and just take their money. I demand results.
Yeah.
So
They wouldn't like you when you're angry.
exactly. You know what's great about training? When you work out, you can't take your anger out of the weight, the barbell, the dumbbell. They're going to hit you back. So if I have a client I'm training and they're being mean towards me, taking their frustration, I just did increase the weight. 10 more, 8, 7, 6. Come on, 4 more.
That's great. Well, I know you guys have some questions, so if you want to line up by the microphone over here, we'd love to hear what you have to ask.
Don't be shy. Really, don't be shy.
Look, he's really nice. You don't need to be scared.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Okay, you can hear me. So I had read somewhere when you first started deciding you wanted to get stronger, you used a broomstick and a couple of buckets of cement. Is that true?
Yes.
Wow.
I used to get different pills. I used to feel sometimes the pill 1/3, 1/2. I made different barbells, and I put the broomstick in the middle. But the hardest thing for me when I used to do pills with the broomstick, sometimes the pill would spin and then it would fall off the stick. So I was trying to keep the balance because I couldn't afford weight. It just shows you how bad you want to have barbells and dumbbells. That's when I improvise.
That's awesome.
Thank you. You know, there's a woman here, she's a huge fan of mine. She's my future wife. I want you to say hello to her. This woman is one of the biggest fans. She loves the whole family flying down. They're so excited. Lisa said, yeah. But we share a lot of different stories about the Hulk. And she liked everything she sees about the Hulk she collects.
So Lisa, is Lou as nice off stage as he is on stage?
He's a nice man everywhere.
I'll pay you later.
Yes, sir.
I was just going to ask you if you were still friends with Shatner in real life and also Schwarzenegger.
Oh yeah, I see Shaq from time to time. And Arnold, I played chess with him about 8 months ago. I went to his house. Because, we reminisce about old time. And especially, I think, what's funny? What Arnold accomplished, what I've done, like now, we look back at our careers, where we came from, we had nothing. When you grow over the years, like with them, we become competitive, different sports, different challenges. Like with them, Arnold's going to be 70, I'm 73. You talk about the accomplishment and you appreciate how much you've done for life, for the world and everything. But it's fun. But Shaq is another one, especially his age now, 94, he goes to space. He comes down, he's still signing autographs. I heard when he went to space, the next day he was signing autographs again. I mean, think about this. That's incredible, especially that when he started, they have Comic Cons, they have like convention, but like comic book convention. Now what you have, what you call Comic Con, that pop culture, you bring families, bring kids. The old days you had your comic convention. Like for example, you take Adam West, the original Batman, he would go on stage as Batman and very poorly dressed Robin to still autograph, because those days they were desperate to make money. But now because there's a pop culture convention, you can actually enjoy, make a good living, and interact with the fans, because especially you're talking about decades of fan base. It's amazing.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Hello. So, I know the Hawk show was, I know, before my time. Not just, I don't want to be rude about that, but when you were asked to do like the voiceover for the MCU, the Hawk, I know you did a cameo prior to that, but what kind of got you, I know there wasn't much, but did you ever feel overwhelmed because you knew the Avengers was like a huge part of pop culture at the time, and how did you kind of get into character and kind of balance yourself out for that role?
You mean adapting to the role?
Correct, yeah. Just with how huge it was going to be, unless you didn't know how huge it was going to be, I
Well,
just didn't know if you felt overwhelmed.
Well, the thing at the beginning, you got to remember as an actor, you have to be attracted to the character. That's important because it's not just putting the makeup on and just ground make a different sound, because I have to show a lot of feeling like pantomime without speaking. But then I was so overwhelmed because I had no idea what it would launch, because in those days, like today, you have all these fine actors playing the Avenger Endgame, like Anthony Hopkins, the finest actor in the world. But the whole changed because over the years, what kept the Hulk alive, my physicality too, traveling, promotion, especially with these different countries. I mean, still even today it's overwhelming, especially like almost 50 years later, that it's just more popular than ever, especially the whole genre. You're welcome.
And it's interesting you talked about with Arnold that you have such a great relationship now. It's because you also shared something that most people can't relate. You went through this shared experience that only you guys can really understand what it was like at that time to live that life. So,
Well, you know, it's funny, Arnold's father was a captain of the police department. My father was a lieutenant. We have both had strict upbringing. That's why 20 years ago, talking to the sheriff in LA, I said, I'd love to be a police officer. He said, why don't you go through the academy? Because I didn't want to be the honorary. I went through the academy, the shooting, the driving. I became a certified deputy sheriff. But it's funny how when you were young, you had this different dream, and sometimes people have dreams, and they just to think about it. In my life, for example, any dream I had, I go after it because that's what I wanted to be. So it's interesting that I personally became a police officer because my father said I could never amount to anything. So it was almost like, screw you, I'm a police officer now, you're a cop, and I became a sheriff.
What did you think when they told you you were going to fight a bear? When you were going to fight the bear in the TV series?
what do you think when you were going to fight the bear?
That was a nightmare because the bear was getting green makeup on his face. We had to feel the warmth. We had to shoot the scene over and over because it was a trained bear, like a baby bear that weighs 600 pounds. But because of the makeup, so that poor bear that I keep wiping his face every day, taking the makeup off. We were in that water for maybe like 8 to 10 hours. The wig would fall off. I looked like a bald coat jacket. I mean, on and on.
The bear didn't have a stunt double?
No, unfortunately, no. But I'll tell you one thing, it's almost like you're working with a wall. It was like 7 feet tall, weighs 700 pounds. It was a trained bear. I mean, when they say trained, but still, I was a little nervous because, I mean, one movement of the arm that could just rip into pieces.
The only
I just hear you.
character on the series that was bigger than you.
Hi, this might kind of be a dumb question, but I was just wondering, what kind of music did you listen to, like, in the gym?
You know, I really never listened to music because of my hearing situation. Because when I was younger, when I go to a gym, I could not wear hearing aids because hearing aids today, they're waterproof. In those days, if I had any perspiration, I couldn't hear. So I would go to the gym, I would be in a silent world. That's why it gave me incredible focus to train and work out. Now, if I go to the gym now, like for example, if I train home to Lisa, she puts all kinds of music on, right? You know, upbeat music. And it's nice, I can listen to it. But it's hard for me to differentiate the words because of my hearing situation. But I love music. But in those days when I trained in the gym, I did wear hearing aids both. But I remember sometimes I see people in the gym listen to music. Music, beautiful. But for me, I made the decision to use my own mental capacity to entertain myself.
So you can sort of say that your hearing loss was a benefit to you to help you focus on your goals.
If I didn't have this hearing problem, I would be where I am today because I took negative to positive. I took the high road because I used other qualities of myself. Like for example, sometimes you lose something, you gain something. I have a greater sense of smell, greater sense of intuition about people. Everybody has a different gift.
So you should have played Daredevil.
Daredevil was in one of the movies.
Lou, I want to let you know it's a pleasure to actually get the chance to talk to you. I was 3 when The Incredible Hulk came out. And I watched it. That was one of the shows my parents let me watch. I really enjoyed that show. You know, I'm a kid who grew up with Star Wars. Star Trek wasn't available in my area until I was about 13. So I didn't have a chance to watch it. Become a big fan of that, obviously. So when I was watching Star Trek Continues, I was watching it when it came out. And when you first showed up in there, I thought, who is this guy? I have no idea who he is. They're showing an impressive entrance for him. Had no idea who you were until you spoke. And then I was like, that's Lou Ferrigno. I'm amazed. I was so ecstatic to see you being in an episode of Star Trek. And they already asked the questions I was going to ask, but I'll ask you an additional one. A couple of years ago, we got to go to Kingsland, Georgia, where they had the sets for Star Trek Continues. And they had a fan event. And apparently the actors who were involved would show up there. Got to meet Vic then. They relocated that. Have you ever done any of the fan events for the Star Trek Continues sets?
No.
Okay. Would you do them in the future, possibly?
For sure. By the way, StarTrekContinued.com is online for free. The name of the show I did called Episode 2, Golani. Yes. Check it out because when you first see it, you don't know it's me because you know, you see the character is interesting, but basically...
You had a goatee, you had the knees hanging off the goatee, and off your ears, skull cap, and everything.
I played my father.
Yeah, we are going to catch up with you and get an autograph later. That's what I brought for you to autograph is the Blu-ray copies I've got of that.
Sure.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Lou. You've been a huge part of my life. I want you to know I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello. I've been a huge fan ever since I was a little kid. I actually met you once before. This is a picture from the late 80s. We were at Disney World and you were signing an autograph for me right here.
Wow.
And attest to your kindness, you were eating dinner and we waited for you outside the hotel and you took the time to sign autographs for me and my family.
And then you pounced.
I think he was a little intimidated, you know, by my size.
No doubt.
Oh, that's a great story. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, other than the bear that you had to fight, which sounds fairly scary, you know, they made you do all of your own stunts. Were there any other moments where you're like, oh, clearly, obviously, I'm going to die today?
Yeah. There's one episode I did when I had to face the bull. You recall that in the arena.
We're bullfighting.
Yeah.
Okay. They brought a bowl onto the set. It's true. The bowl broke. Now, I was standing. You see this ball? Say, believe it or not, right? They had a wall behind me. They keep all the cattle, everything. The wall had to be maybe about this high, right? So they had the two cowboys on 2 horses would roll the bull hind leg. So the bull kind of laying down. You can tell it's really tough. The only scene I have to actually walk up as a Hulk and grab the horn, trying to pretend that I'm holding the bull down. So on this, so they gave me the go on, his eyes opened. And he started almost lunge towards me. Till today, I don't know how I went over that wall. Over the wall, I don't remember.
As it turned out, the drug
I
that
was
you
terrified. But let me tell you this. It's a good thing I made the movement because that bull went forward 6 feet. He literally dragged both horses. I could have been killed. Yes.
Were you ever injured on set?
No.
That's amazing.
I've been injured off set.
Doing stupid things.
as opposed to a really smart thing like pissing off a bull. Yeah.
Well, you get the last question.
I remember watching when I was a kid in the 80s, Incredible Hulk, it was great. Was there ever, what are you looking back on this show? I know you did all your own stunts. Was there one that you just like absolutely loved? It was like your absolute favorite stunt to do?
You know, besides the show showing the laser component mentioned, there was one show, there was a father abusing his son. He beat his son physically. And you can see the Hulk where he's doing the same thing to Bill Bixby. Then you see in the gymnasium, Bill becomes the Hulk. And you can see the Hulk actually throwing the father against the wall. The father trying to hit the Hulk, and the Hulk just basically just push him to the fence. The father broke down and realized that he was having a problem with his father, but he apologized to his son. That's one of my favorite shows because it shows you about bullying. And you don't even go lesson with the Hulk because you can't bully the Hulk.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're so grateful, Lou. He'll be at his booth answering questions, signing autographs. He'll be here all weekend. So we thank you for being with us, and I know that you have an announcement.
I do. So it's a GalaxyCon tradition that no one gets out a lot. No, that's not the tradition. The tradition is everybody comes forward and we do a group selfie with Lou. So you just come up to the stage and he's going to pose with you guys and, don't leave or you'll make him angry.
Thank you so much, Lou. It was great.